Love doesn't thrive in perfection. It breathes in presence. Too many options devalue all options.
This video took me forever to write. There is a big problem happening with a lot of men right now. Most of us did not see this problem coming. And even when we did, we didn't take it seriously enough. Every day, more men are silently slipping into lives they no longer recognize, going through the motions, smiling at parties, performing success, while quietly wondering if they've already lost the parts of themselves that mattered most. This is the cost of wearing a mask too long, of becoming the version of yourself the world accepts, but you don't even recognize in the mirror. We're not just talking about dating struggles or loneliness. We're confronting the shadow, the part of the psyche that modern culture tells men to suppress, the anger, the fear, the shame of feeling unseen. How red pill ideology, collapsing relationship norms, and the rise of options culture are all symptoms of a deeper fracture in the masculine identity. If you've been feeling lost, numb, or like no matter what you achieve, it never feels like enough, you're at war with parts of yourself you've been taught to ignore. And the only way out is in. Once we bring your shadow into the light, everything starts to change. Boys are breaking quietly, privately, not because they're too soft or too wild, but because they've been taught to strangle half of themselves to survive. From the moment they can walk, boys are told who they're supposed to be: strong but gentle, brave but never emotional, open but never too much. What happens when a child is asked to embody contradictions? He splits. He fragments into the person he shows the world, and the person he hides in silence. That's not drama. That's shadow work in real time. These boys are not unmotivated, they're dissociated, not apathetic, they're emotionally starved. The show didn't invent this crisis, it revealed it. It gave faces to the disoriented, digital age boy, the one who flinches at connection because every attempt he's made was misunderstood or mocked, the one who turns to the internet not for rebellion, but for relief. And in those dark corners, his unspoken pain is finally mirrored back. Twisted, yes, but at least acknowledged. What adolescence shows us isn't just fiction, it's prophecy. A glimpse into what happens when a generation is raised without emotional literacy, without role models who know how to hold both strength and softness. These boys aren't villains in the making. They're mirrors of our failure to create space for masculine vulnerability. And if we don't face that now, their shadow will grow into something far harder to unmake later. Let's talk about something uncomfortable: red pill culture. You've probably seen it online, maybe dismissed it as angry, bitter noise, but behind the memes and the provocations, there's something raw, something bleeding. Some men don't land in these spaces because they hate women. They land there because they feel invisible. They reach for these ideologies not out of power, but out of powerlessness, out of humiliation, out of longing to be chosen, to be heard, to be seen. They were told that being kind would work, that vulnerability was strength, that doing the right thing would lead to love. But the world didn't reward those things the way they expected. And in the wreckage of rejection, they began to question everything. That's when the red pill shows up, not as a philosophy, but as a seduction, a story that gives them someone to blame, a reason why they're hurting. And suddenly it feels good to be angry. It feels like control. Unhealed pain always looks for a target. And when it doesn't get acknowledged, it calcifies into resentment, into generalizations, into all women are like that. That's where empathy dies. That's where nuance collapses. That's when boys become soldiers in a war they never wanted to fight. If we don't learn to separate the pain from the poison, we'll keep losing people to extremes that only deepen the wound. These men aren't monsters, they're mirrors. And if we had the courage to look into that mirror without flinching, maybe we'd stop fighting symptoms and finally start healing the source. Something's breaking beneath the surface, and it's not just sadness, it's silence. Suicide rates among young men have surged. Behind that statistic are boys turned men who no longer see a place for themselves in the world they were told to win. Most men under 30 are single, and what's more revealing, half of them aren't even trying anymore. Not because they don't want love, but because they've internalized the quiet answer they think the world already gave them. You don't matter. Rejection doesn't just sting, it rewires, it teaches. One no becomes a story, 10 become a belief, and eventually trying feels foolish. That's when effort turns into withdrawal. Not just from relationships, but from life itself. These men aren't bitter, they're grieving. Grieving the selves they hope to become. Grieving connection they can't seem to find. And the tragedy is, they're not turning away from women. They're turning away from themselves. Life teaches us that when someone is cut off from meaning, they will find it in shadow. A sense of identity, any identity, is better than invisibility. That's why hopelessness is so dangerous. It's not loud, it's not violent, it's numb. It's checking out of a life that never felt like yours to begin with. It's quiet despair dressed as detachment. And if we continue to ignore the emotional death happening in plain sight, we don't just lose men, we lose the possibility of rebuilding a culture where they can belong, not as performers, but as people worth loving, flaws, fears, and all. Now here's the twist. Women are rising. Quietly at first, then louder, degree by degree, job by job, promotion by promotion. They're outpacing men in education, climbing higher in the workforce, buying homes on their own, launching businesses from scratch. This isn't luck, it's blood, sweat, and generational grit. And they deserve every inch of that climb. But with power comes options. And with options come expectations. When you're no longer dependent, you don't settle. You get to ask, do I even want this? Standards rise not because women became entitled, but because they finally had the room to be discerning. It's not pickiness, it's autonomy. The freedom to choose is sacred. And after decades of being told to take what they can get, why wouldn't women choose more carefully? But there's a cost, not to women, but to the system that hasn't evolved fast enough to meet them. Because while women moved forward, many men stood still, confused, ashamed, or too afraid to say, I don't know how to keep up. The result isn't a war, it's a widening gap. Fewer matches, more disconnection, less trust, more fear. Dark psychology calls this a mismatch of perceived value. One side feels abundant, the other discarded. And into that emotional gap slips resentment, envy, withdrawal. Not because women did something wrong, but because the masculine ego, left unsupported, doesn't know how to recalibrate when it's no longer the default provider. It's about balance. Because if only one side is evolving and the other is collapsing in silence, eventually both suffer. Connection needs more than options, it needs courage from both sides. This isn't just a dating problem, it's deeper than swipes and ghosted texts. This is a cultural fracture, a demographic shift that's quietly reshaping the soul of society. Marriage is down, birth rates are collapsing, more people are living alone than ever before, not because they've given up on love, but because they no longer trust themselves to hold it. It's not that we stopped wanting connection, we stopped believing we deserve it. In a world of constant comparison, intimacy starts to feel like a prize you earn, not a human need you're allowed to have. Every failed relationship becomes a scar that whispers, "You're not enough." And soon, that whisper becomes your truth. So people stay single. Not happily, strategically, safer to avoid the mirror someone else might hold up, safer to be self-reliant than risk being seen and rejected. We've mistaken avoidance for empowerment, but deep down we know better. Dark psychology shows us that when intimacy becomes unsafe, the mind will rewrite its value. It tells us to crave control instead. Connection becomes weakness. Vulnerability becomes danger, and what once made us human, shared joy, shared pain, shared life, gets priced out like some unattainable luxury. The relationship recession isn't about apathy, it's about fear. Fear of not measuring up. Fear of being abandoned again. Fear of being known and still left behind. And until we learn to meet that fear with courage, not perfection, we'll keep choosing distance over closeness, comfort over risk. But love doesn't live in comfort zones, it lives in the messy middle. The part we're all afraid to enter, but dying to find. Some women say, there are no good men left. Some men fire back, women only care about money. On the surface, it sounds like bitterness. But underneath, it's grief. Two sides mourning the same thing, real connection, without realizing they're speaking different dialects of the same loneliness. Both are hurting. Both are simplifying something profoundly human into something transactional, because it's safer to blame than to feel rejected. Yes, financial stability matters. We all want safety, a partner who can stand beside us, not weigh us down. Yes, attraction matters too. Chemistry is real, and it's part of the magic. But so is kindness, so is warmth, so is the feeling you get when someone looks at you and actually sees you. But we've forgotten how to see. We've trained ourselves to look for bullet points. Income, height, status, body count, like we're shopping for a brand instead of meeting a soul. And dark psychology teaches us, the more we rely on external measures of worth, the less capable we become of bonding through vulnerability. Checklists protect us, they keep us from wasting time. But they also keep us from risking time with someone who might not tick every box, but might touch something deeper in us. When you lead with a checklist, you miss the crooked smile, the soft eyes, the story that doesn't fit your filter. You miss the messy, beautiful human behind the resume. And maybe that's the real tragedy, when two people who could have healed each other scroll past without ever knowing. Swipe left, scroll down, match, message, repeat. We're drowning in choices that feel like freedom but function like paralysis. Dating apps promise to open doors, to bring people together, to simplify love. Instead, they've fractured it into a game of thumbnails and dopamine hits. The promise wasn't connection, it was control. Every profile is a performance. Every match is a potential upgrade. So when things get hard, we bail. Not because we're cruel, but because we've been trained to believe that something better is one swipe away. We stop investing, we stop enduring, we stop seeing people for who they are and start seeing them for what they lack. And when everyone becomes a replaceable option, no one feels irreplaceable. That's the illusion. The next person might have better photos, better stats, better surface appeal. But connection doesn't live in curated snapshots, it lives in nuance, in the awkward silences, in the unfiltered truth. Too many options devalue all options. When the brain is overwhelmed, it avoids depth. It avoids risk. We begin to protect ourselves from disappointment by never choosing fully. We commit halfway and wonder why nothing sticks. This is why so many people feel disposable, not because they are, but because they're caught in a system that commodifies attention and strips away soul. And when you become a product, you forget you're a person. The tragedy? We're not dating each other anymore. We're dating projections, fantasies, filtered versions that vanish the moment real intimacy tries to enter the room. Here's a harsh truth. Comfort is killing connection, slowly, silently. It doesn't announce itself like heartbreak or loneliness. It disguises itself as convenience. It whispers, "You're tired, just stay in." And so we do. We trade Friday nights out for scrolling sessions. We trade real faces for filtered ones. We laugh at shows more than we do with people, and we wonder why we feel so hollow. Men, especially, are disappearing into this numb space, not because they're lazy, but because the world outside the screen feels foreign, risky, demanding. Friendship takes effort. Flirting requires vulnerability. Rejection stings more when you're not hiding behind a username. And over time, the couch becomes not just a place to sit, but a cage, a padded cell of soft habits that erode self-worth. The mind avoids pain, so it builds routines that minimize exposure. But the shadow side of comfort is stagnation. Growth dies when nothing challenges it. And when you lose the will to be seen, you lose the ability to be loved, because love needs your presence, not your highlight reel, not your late night texts. So if you're still breathing, you're not stuck, you're stalling. And change doesn't start with some grand gesture. It starts with motion, with a yes to a plan you want to cancel, with a hello to a stranger, with showing up even when you're not ready. The couch won't save you, but the door might. Stand up, step out, start again. If you're a man who feels behind, I see you. Not the mask, not the performance. You, the one who's been carrying doubt like armor and calling it strength. The one who scrolls past love advice because it always seems written for someone taller, richer, more polished, someone else. But hear this, you are not broken, you are becoming. And becoming is messy. It means stumbling, not knowing, trying anyway. You don't need to be rich to be respected. You don't need to be tall to be held. You don't need perfect words, perfect timing, or perfect skin to be loved. You just need to be real, present, honest. The kind of man who shows up with his whole truth, not just the parts that feel safe to show. In a world full of masks, presence is rare, and rare things are powerful. Mind protects itself through assumptions. No one wants me becomes a shield, because rejection hurts less if you reject yourself first. But that's not safety, that's self-abandonment. And every time you repeat that lie, you build another wall between you and the life that could have been yours. You don't need 10 matches, you need one moment of courage. One woman who sees not just your potential, but your persistence. So, start where you are. Speak even when your voice shakes. Let someone see the man beneath the silence. You're not too late. You're not too much. You're still in it. Let that be enough for now. Then build from there. If you're a woman who's thriving but struggling to find love, this part is for you. You've built something strong, something rare. A life on your own terms. You've earned the right to be selective, to protect your peace, to demand more. But sometimes, without meaning to, success hardens into armor. And armor keeps everything out, even the things you secretly crave. You didn't fight your way through glass ceilings, expectations, and silence just to return home to an empty room echoing with loneliness. You didn't grind for independence, only to feel punished for it. You're allowed to want connection, deep, emotional, soul-level connection, not because you need rescuing, but because you still believe in being held, even when you're strong enough to stand alone. Dark psychology shows us how the mind, once hurt, trades vulnerability for control. The more you build, the harder it gets to open. The more self-sufficient you become, the more you subconsciously fear being truly seen. Because what if the real you beneath the titles, beneath the polish, isn't enough? But that fear is a lie, and it's costing you love. Choose someone who sees you beyond your LinkedIn profile, someone who values the warmth in your laughter, more than the number on your paycheck. Let go of the checklist that says he has to impress your friends, match your status, or live up to a version of you that's always performing. Love doesn't thrive in perfection. It breathes in presence, in softness, in letting yourself be known, even when it's terrifying. You didn't come this far just to build a life alone. You came this far so you could finally choose who walks beside you, with your heart wide open. We've been lied to about what attraction really is. Sold a highlight reel of abs, jawlines, luxury cars, and curated Instagram feeds. As if desire could be engineered by algorithms and six-packs, but the truth lives in places the camera doesn't reach. Attraction isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's not height, it's not the size of someone's wallet, it's the way they lean in when you speak, the way their eyes don't drift to their phone. It's how you feel when you laugh together, unguarded, unedited. Real connection sneaks in through the cracks, not the filters. We fall for things we didn't expect. A lopsided smile. The way someone talks with their hands. That nervous pause before they say something vulnerable. Dark psychology reminds us we are wired not for beauty, but for resonance, familiarity, depth. The soul recognizes patterns the mind hasn't named yet, but when you live in a world of swipes and stats, you start mistaking options for intimacy. You chase sparks that never last while ignoring the steady flame that's right beside you. We forget that magic isn't delivered, it's discovered. And discovery only happens when you show up fully, open, curious, willing. So go where your people are. Say yes to the things you usually avoid. Talk to the stranger at the bookstore. Make awkward eye contact at the cafe. Love doesn't always scream when it enters the room. Sometimes it whispers. And you only hear it if you're actually listening. Because attraction was never about the surface. It was about the spark behind the eyes. The one you feel before you even know why. Dating is storytelling. Not just the stories you tell others, but the one you tell yourself, quietly, when no one's listening. The narrative you repeat in your head becomes the lens through which you see every connection, every rejection, every beginning that didn't last. And here's where the shadow creeps in. If you keep telling yourself you're unlovable, broken, too late, too complicated, you'll start showing up like it's true. Dark psychology teaches us that identity forms around repetition. Not truth, repetition. So when you say, "I'm just unlucky in love," enough times, your brain files it as fact. You begin to anticipate the end before the story even begins. You sabotage the plot because you're afraid of how it ends. But what if it's not about luck? What if you're just in the middle of a rewrite? Men, especially, are disappearing into this numb space, not because they're lazy, but because the world outside the screen feels foreign, risky, demanding. Friendship takes effort. Flirting requires vulnerability. Rejection stings more when you're not hiding behind a username. And over time, the couch becomes not just a place to sit, but a cage, a padded cell of soft habits that erode self-worth. Every conversation is a page. Every small risk to open up is another sentence. Every moment you stay curious instead of cynical is an edit toward something better. And maybe, just maybe, the best part of your love story hasn't happened yet. Not because you're behind, but because you're becoming the kind of person who can actually hold it when it arrives. That's not weakness. That's power. That's authorship. Write accordingly. Before you go, if even one part of this video made you pause, if it cracked something open or felt like it put words to something you've been carrying in silence, do one thing. Leave a comment below with the words, "I'm still becoming," because that's the truth we forget when it hurts the most. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are a rough draft of something extraordinary still in progress. Before you click off, remember this. You are not your past, not your ghosted calls, not the heartbreaks, not the nights you convinced yourself you're too much or never enough. You are someone becoming, and that means your story is still unfolding. The next chapter might be everything you've been waiting for, but only if you stay in the room long enough to receive it. Watch the video on screen if you're ready to go even deeper, and thank you for being a part of Mosaic Mind.